So opening speech. Judges ready, opponents ready. My time starts now. When I get observation, it is juveniles' fault they committed crimes. The Kyrgyzstan forced them to. That's why the current punishment is enough. We don't need to lessen or increase. Framework. Since this solution targets mostly on human right and morality, if we can prove that we can secure the right of everyone, then we should win today's debate. Contention 1, involuntary. Subpoint A, poor education. One of the major contributing factors to juvenile crime is lack of education. According to 2010 investigation and analysis report on juvenile delinquency, 46.6% of juvenile delinquencies did not know they had committed crimes. After intervals with these juveniles, most of them still do not know they had committed crimes after they're arrested. Poor education will highly increase the possibilities of committing crimes. Subpoint B, implausibility. According to 2010 investigation and analysis report on juvenile delinquency, the proportion of impulsive juvenile delinquency accounted for 65.3%. Juveniles' lack of self-control leads to a characteristic of impulsivity. When they're affected by bad emotions, it is difficult to control their irrational behavior, then it's easy to cause passion crimes. Thus, the best solution is literally not treating incarcerated juveniles as adults in juvenile justice system. Contention 2, connection between family members. According to ACS distant education, 50% of the common reasons that juveniles commit crimes are the connection between families. Subpoint A, single-parent family. With the rising divorce rates, the growth of children in single-parent families has attracted attention to the whole society. According to the data, the crime rate of children in single-parent families has accounted for 50% of juveniles' crime rate. In the single-parent families, it is difficult for single parents to create a humorous family atmosphere for their children. Usually, this kind of children will lack of sense of security. They often show bad personalities tendencies. They will encounter problems when they solve the problem in extreme ways, resulting in the consequences of crime. Subpoint B, dysfunctional family. There's 16.9% of juveniles commit crimes because of dysfunctional family. Family dysfunction, such as poor economic status, will reduce the chance of providing social control to children, so they're more likely to engage in assaultive behavior. Family function has been regarded as a powerful predictor of juvenile delinquency. Contention 3, adults prison bad for juveniles. Subpoint A, adult prison overcrowd. According to Carolina in 2017, violence is common in adult prison system. Teenagers who are sent to adult institution are at a greater risk of abuse and physical assault. Juveniles in adult institution are twice as likely to be bitten by the staff as juveniles in juvenile institutions, and 50% more likely to be attacked by weapons than juveniles in juvenile institutions. Subpoint B, diseases. According to Carolina in 2017, 69% of the incarcerated youth reported some type of health care needed, and more than 1 in 4 respondents reported acute disease. Health experts have found a strong link between stress and poor health outcomes, present in often extremely tense environments. Long-term exposure or pressure will cause a state. This state will permanently lead to chronic illness. That is, so it's called high unstable load. In addition to these chronic diseases, studies have shown that condition of imprisonment worsens the spread of infectious diseases. Infectious diseases are the main healthcare needs of incarcerated youth. In conclusion, we can see that putting juveniles in prisons does not solve the problem at all. We even worsen the problem and by damaging youth health. So parole is always not the best solvency. As a concept for today's debate, we stand on the framework on consider both sides. First, we consider on the human right and morality. And second, we secure the both right of everyone. We secure the right of juveniles and also the victims. So from all the reasons both, we're proudly defend on the con side, and we urge the judge to vote for con. Thank you.
Okay, we would like to run our prep time. Thank you. Okay, that's time. We would like to start our constructive speech.
All right, is everyone ready? If so, then my time starts now. We affirm the resolution. The primary goal of law is to build on lives and serve justice. Therefore, we evaluate today's debate by certain values, which includes 1, ensuring equality for beings, 2, establishing social security and balance, Contention 1, equal treatment. People should be treated equally regardless. Receiving different treatment based upon certain characteristics disrupts social order and obstructs security. No consequence for violent crimes means justification for criminal acts. Subpoint A, retribution. Violent crime is punishable. An individual who commits violent crime should be punished accordingly to justify justice. According to Harvard Journal of Law and Public Policy, the adoption of retribution for punishment provides a powerful, multifaceted justification. It ensures that the guilty will be punished, the innocent protected, and societal balance restored after being disrupted by crime. Retribution is thus an appropriate moral justification for punishment. While retribution morally and naturally responds to crime, current juvenile justice system fails to incorporate retribution. Boston College Law Review reported that the criminals in juvenile court received the disposition consisting only of detention until age 21 without additional retribution. With retribution, Levy from the State University of Law Center claims it rationally motivates people to do the next best thing to undoing the harm, undoing the moral and social inequality. Subpoint B, protection of the victims. Violent crime severely disrupts the life of victims, causing sufferings and losses. The statistics of victimization impacts suggest that nearly 9 out of 10 victims reported suffering from disrupted family life. Some might lose their jobs post-crime, which means disconnecting social networks and withdrawing from social participation. Even in such a situation where the rights of the victims are being deprived, Indiana Law Journal still reported that the current system failed to fully ensure the right of the victim since it fails to recognize a defendant's obligation to assume responsibility for harm done on a victim. In this scenario, by treating juveniles same as adults in a criminal justice system, plus justifying the victim's right, our impact is, first, restoring the equality between criminals and victims. When the state punishes a criminal, it is reducing the criminal's rights and powers to the same degree that he or she previously reduced the victim's rights when he or she committed the crime. By this, criminal punishment helps to restore moral and social equilibrium. Second, ensuring the victim's rights by reducing future crimes and death. The consequence of not being able to protect the victim by the society itself is when the emergence of vigilantism where death and crime soars. An empirical study from the Police Journal about dealing with vigilantism have shown that individuals who have suffered higher than average victimization themselves are the ones who will begin to propose or to engage in vigilantism. The police theory also reported that in the U.S., each year potential victims of crime kill between 1,400 and 3,200 criminals and injure a further 7,700 to 18,500. Contention 2, law enforcement. Law enforcement in the criminal justice system is an impartial protector of the public safety. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, law enforcement includes the prevention, detection, and investigation of crime, and the apprehension and detention of the individuals who violates the law. When aiming to respond crime, law enforcement agencies have shown to be effective at mainly two things. First, deterring the criminal. Treating juveniles as adults in the criminal justice system produces deterrence effect. According to Isaac Amrich, professor at the University of Chicago, the idea that law enforcement and the apprehension and punishment of lawbreakers serves partly as a means of deterring future crimes. Second, crime reduction. According to the Department of Justice, a suppression strategy of vigorous law enforcement has shown to be successful in dealing with criminals. In a prose world where the evil would be punished regardless of personal traits, that we are the ultimate side who promotes to doing the right thing and helping the most people. Thus we affirm. Thank you.
We would like to check a piece of card, the 9 out of 10 victims one, if that's okay.
All right,
Sure,
no
no
problem.
problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, the evidence is sent. Can we proceed?
Do you need like prep to check it first?
No, thank you. I
right,
think you
sure. Mhm.
think.
Let's proceed then. You get the first question.
Okay, so everyone ready for crowds? My time starts now. So first question, since 1973 to now, there are only 22 juvenile offenders have been executed. So how can you still tell the retribution have a stable impact?
First of all, like execution is only part of retribution, right? You can also put people in jail for a certain amount of time, depending on the severeness of their acts. That's also called retribution. You don't have to kill someone in order to say that's retribution. Now, about your first contention, you talk about how people don't even know that it's a crime when they after being caught. However, does that apply for like violent crimes? For example, if you kill someone, you don't even know that's a crime. Like, I don't think that's educational issues. I think that's mental disabilities, right?
Okay, first we tell you that actually not every country is like China. We have 9 years free education for everyone. Actually, second, we tell you 46.6% of the juveniles delinquency did not know they had committed crimes. Juveniles like under.
I have one
Okay.
question. I have one question.
Yeah.
You talk about crime, but not violent crimes, right? Because
No,
violent crimes are
okay.
a lot more severe, right? Like you can't say without 9-year compulsory
Sorry.
education, I think killing someone is reasonable. No matter what your year or how many education you have been to, I think everyone should be able to figure out that killing someone is not reasonable, right?
Okay. First, we tell you actually that is violent crime. Our evidence is about violent crime, and we're only limited to the topic. And second, we tell you actually they don't know the punishment. Like maybe they might know what is right or wrong, but they don't know the punishment behind them. Okay, so
Exactly.
can we move on to another question?
Can I have one quick statement?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, that's exactly why we need retribution, because when they don't know the punishment, when they don't, for example, if it's only like sitting there for a lecture for like 5 minutes, then they say, okay, no impact. This is basically justifying criminal activity, right? We can move on.
No, I don't think so. Let's move on. Okay, move on to my question. Can you tell me the quantified impact for a second contention, or like provide me some numbers?
You mean for law enforcement?
Yeah.
First of all, this is like law enforcement is not something you measure. Like it's not either a percentage issue because you can't calculate the percentage of like law enforcement. I don't think this is very rational for you asking for this because it's not something calculable. Like, so let's like if you don't mind, can we move on?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Like you talk about connection between family members, right? For example, if there's like a single parent family. However, how does the juvenile justice system help with this?
Okay, so actually our logic here is because of the connection between family members, for example, single parent family or dysfunctional family. That is the reason that they cause them commit crimes. So actually from our logic and from our observation, we should not actually punish the juveniles. We should punish like it's the environment's fault. We should punish the environment.
You talk about the environment, right? So how does your juvenile solve this environment, right? Like just because, like for example, if one of your parent died at a young age, that doesn't mean you can go around killing people or like doing other like offensive things, right? That's not an excuse.
We should not give them
when you say that, you're basically saying violent crimes are okay to commit.
Okay, time's up. Okay, thank you.
We would like to run our prep time, please. Thank you. Okay, sure. That will be all the time I need. So, everybody ready? First, before my rebuttal speech, I'd like to do a roadmap, basically just guiding you guys through the logic link of my rebuttal speech. So it's first going to be some simple clarifications, and then it's going to be a clarification. First, it's going to be simple clarifications. Definitely. So, my time will start now. First, regarding their evidence that they send in the chat box, we tell you that piece of evidence is not directed to people who have committed violent crimes. So you should basically just cross this off your ballot right now. Now, moving on to looking at their framework, they talk about the quality of being. When we tell you that they don't even win under their framework because the services offered by prisons actually fail. Even in the best of times, jails are not good at providing health and social services. Although local jails are filled with people who need medical care and social services, jails have actually repeatedly failed to provide these services, and that's according to prisonpolicy.org. So we can see they don't even win under their framework, and that's why you should prioritize our framework in today's debate. Moreover, they talked about retribution. When we point out that the logic link here is actually really cool, because just because somebody did something wrong doesn't mean we should sacrifice both lives. Secondly, we also tell you that juveniles' brains aren't even fully developed, so there is a chance that they commit crime due to self-defense accidents or immature. So why should they be punished as severely? The court stressed that lack of privileges and responsibilities afforded to juveniles also explains why their irresponsible conduct is not as prehensible as that of an adult. Moreover, we also tell you even if you don't buy any of the responses above, there are still ways to fix them rather than just killing them. For example, rehabilitation. The inmates who completed in the California industry programs had just 7% of recidivism rates. We are helping the juveniles and we're protecting the rights of them, and we're the ones who should be prioritized in today's debate. Moreover, they talked about victim rights. When we tell you victims are actually satisfied with the juvenile system, they're more likely to forgive the offender and more satisfied with the legal process in general and restorative justice process. Victims were 6 times more likely to forgive the offender in restorative justice process than in court proceedings, according to meta-analysis. Also, we tell you that the victim satisfaction rates in the US were as huge as 57%. Also, a study published in the journal Youth Violence and Juvenile Justice System discovered that juveniles were 38% less likely to commit another offense when placed in a restorative justice intervention program. So by this, we can actually reduce the crime that's going to happen in the future. Moreover, they also talked about vigilantism. When we point out a clear logic fallacy, because people only do vigilantism when they're not satisfied with the law, but we already given you clear evidence to show that 57% of people are actually satisfied with the law, and that's why vigilantism can't even happen. Then they talk about deterrence. When we tell you that deterrence doesn't help to reduce crime, the analysis did not show a reduction in the overall rate of violent juvenile crime following the enactment. In 20 of 22 states, there was no decline in arrest rates following the law change. We also tell you that statistics compiled from 15 states revealed that juveniles prosecuted in adult court released from state prisons rearrested 82% of the times. So we can see that prison is not actually a effective solution here. We also tell you there are substantial differences in the recidivism rates among robbery offenders because 76% of robbers prosecuted in criminal court were rearrested as compared with only 67% of them prosecuted in juvenile court. We can see we are the better solvency here. Moreover, they talked about crime reduction when we tell you they're ignoring the real reason of crime reduction here. Crime reduction is caused by economic and social factors. Crime rates fell correspondingly in Canada without any increase in punishment. The general crime drop experienced by Canada is comparable to that found in the United States. Canadian poverty and violent crimes fell at the same time and level of magnitude with the same duration as the rates in the US, but Canada experienced a 10% decline in the number of police officers per 100,000 residents. Crime was declining in Canada at a time when the number of police officers per capita were also declining. Secondly, we tell you that translational gangs will continue to flourish as a byproduct of larger social economic process, such as the growth of transit, unstable neighborhoods, and the expanding of numbers of uncondemned migrants who live on the margins of society. So they're basically ignoring the real reason behind crime reduction here. For all these reasons above, we urge for your strong con ballot. Thank you.
All right. Is it okay if I check 2 pieces of evidence before we proceed?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So first, I want to check your evidence saying like how the percentage of people, like the exact percentage of people, juveniles wanting to commit another crime after put into a certain system is low. The second one is your 67% victim satisfied. Thank you.
Just to make sure, like we should all put our hands up while checking the evidence.
I actually mentioned 2 pieces cards stating that the recidivism rates for juvenile court is really low. Which one do you actually want? Or all of them?
Is it okay if you send me both? Because I don't know like your evidence that well. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, we already sent it to the chat box. That's the first one you want.
Okay, thank you.
The second one is also sent.
Then if that's the case, we would like to start running our prep for
Also, I have a slight question about your evidence. Is the second one the one saying that 67% of the victims are satisfied one?
Yeah, just to make sure.
No, that one is the first one, and it's not 67, it's 57. Sorry.
Let's proceed. We would like to run our prep.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's time. So, is everyone ready? Wait a sec. I'll let you time myself. Okay, then my time starts. Now, first, look at the framework. They tell you the framework is based on human immorality, ensuring the right of everyone. But however, keep in mind, Judge, their whole entire case never even mentioned victims were the beings. We don't see how the framework actually really covered their case. But now let's look at their contention one by one. First, about voluntary. The first subpoint is about poor education. But first of all, we tell you there's actually no link between education and committing crime. Law Note 2007 tell you a correlation between education and crime, even after controlling for measured family background or neighborhood characteristic, does not necessarily imply that education produces crime. Specifically, we tell that studies are unlikely to estimate the causal effect of education on crime. Unobserved individual characteristics like patient or risk aversion are likely to directly affect both schooling and criminal decisions. In this case, we tell that even with education, people still commit crime. The causation is not the education. There is simply no link. But second of all, I don't really think our opponents know what they're talking about because their evidence for their subpoint A is saying that juvenile lack the awareness because they don't even know when they're committing a crime afterwards. But this never suggests any lack of education or any lack of compulsory education as what they said. We believe they simply misread the evidence because it never really suggests why this is actually linked to education. But now let's go into the second subpoint about impositivity. But looking at this contention, what are saying is that since juveniles are impulsive, they should treat them differently. But we tell that impulsiveness should not be the reason why we segregate people and treat them differently. Because we tell you that while juveniles might be developmentally different than the adults, the differences are not so extreme that it requires total segregation. Barry Staples, a tenure of the professor law, tell you they're not so essentially different and inherently incompetent as the current legal dichotomy between juvenile and criminal court suggests. So therefore, treating them upon certain characteristics is actually immoral and irrational. But now let's look at second of all, we tell that most violent juvenile criminals develop enough. According to University Law School, research measuring youthful capacities indicates that mid and late adolescents actually possess a high degree of cognitive maturity. Simply, we don't know why the contention sense crossed it out of her flow. But now let's look at the second contention about family. But looking at this contention as a whole, we don't even see what is the point of this contention. Family issues happen everywhere with normal citizens who don't even commit crime. And that doesn't really restrict juveniles who commit violent crimes. So simply, we don't know why family become an issue, become a consideration that we should measure in today's debate. But second of all, even if we do think family is an issue, we don't see any solvency of this issue. Because even according to them, the root cause of that issue is family related. How can putting the juveniles into the justice system actually change this issue? We don't see any solvency provided by the opposition that can actually deal with the causation of the crime. But now let's look at the subpoint B about dysfunctionally, specifically to mention about how there will be abuse in the system. But we tell you, first of all, looking at the abuse contention, simply this is non-unique. According to research done by the Just Detention, juvenile correction facilities are plagued with sexual violence. A staggering 81% of the victim youth were abused by a member or staff, and most were assaulted multiple times in the juvenile system. So therefore, we don't see why this is actually restricted to our side. In this case, this sexual abuse or abuse is happening and even worse. But last but not least, let's look at their disease contention. We tell that, in fact, the adult criminal justice system has health systems and, in fact, in prison have been shown in a decreasing trend. U.S. Department of Justice tell you about 66% of the prisoners and 40% of all inmates with a current chronic disease condition reported taking prescription and medication. So therefore, we have proven to you the current adult system, criminal system has already given them enough help systems. But even if we don't buy this, we tell you to simply dismiss their link because they have a severe logical fallacy. Because if there is a lack of help system in the adult system, then giving them a health system is the solvency and the direct way to actually effectively deal with this issue. Treating the juveniles as adults in the criminal justice system is not the most effective and direct way, because the juveniles who commit normal crime still suffer without health system anyways. So if you really want to deal with the disease issue, we should instead give them or improve the health system instead of trying them as adults. For all the following reasons, please vote the pro side. Thank you. Ready for cross?
Yeah, sure. So time starts now. First question, can you tell me how are you actually planning on to improve the disease thing, as you already mentioned in your rebuttal?
I would really like to explain my logic for that. First of all, we told that in the first place, there are already enough health system, which means improvements for now in the status quo doesn't necessarily have to be made. But even if you do think the health system is not as good, what we're planning here is to actually improve this by searching government trends, government decisions. This is not something that we believe is to actually train them as juvenile. We don't really see why that is the point.
Okay.
Can we ask a question?
Can I have a really quick follow-up?
Is that a question?
Yeah,
or a
question.
Yeah,
If
sure.
that's okay.
Sure.
So okay, sure. So you talked about how the healthcare facilities are already enough. Can you give me a specific number suggesting that?
We told that, in fact, 66% of the prisoners, 40% of the inmates with the current chronic condition reported taking prescription and medication in the current disease system.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can you please tell me, can you please tell me, is impulsive unique for juveniles? Or am I also occur under grown-ups or the adults
No,
specifically?
what we are suggesting, that's not what we're suggesting right here, right? What
So
we
you
are
say that, oh, sorry, just for cutting you off. So what you're saying is that, so its impulsiveness will only occur on juveniles, right? So all of the adults cannot just, we can't be impulsive when we grow up. It's something that
No.
restricts the juveniles.
No, what we are
And
saying
it's self-contradictory because you just said yes.
No, what we are suggesting right here is that the juveniles are more likely to suffer from this problem, and we've given you the clear evidence of 65% in our case. We tell you that 65% juveniles committed crime due to impulsiveness, and that's why we're suggesting that they should not have.
I would like to have a one sentence explanation. What we're
Yeah.
saying here is that if impulsive doesn't restrict to juveniles, then in this case, we should not treat them upon their characteristics. That means if you really want to treat them in juveniles separately, you have to tell us what is your uniqueness. If they are really so unique that we have to treat them upon their characteristic, then sure. But can you ask a question?
Oh, okay, sure. So you talked about law enforcement. So can you tell me and you mentioned about deterrence. Can you tell me how much proportion of the juveniles have actually been deterred out of crime or deterred after they commit a crime when they're prosecuted in the adult court?
We believe the thing that we stress here is that since we are actually giving the law enforcement or including this in our system, we directly deter them and the impact is pretty visible. Apparently, people do not commit crime, the recidivism directly reduced, and we believe that is the thing that we really want to stress, which is curbing violence and restoring societal balance. But can I ask a question?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So, okay, so I would like to ask a question. Can you please tell me, how can you solve the family issue by trying them as juvenile in the juvenile system?
We're only pointing out a flaw in the adult system. Well, we're not.
I think that is not a flaw. That's about all that with
Okay,
citizens.
yeah. So time, thanks.
Okay, so I want to run you prep for the summary speech. Thank you. Okay, I think I'm ready. So before the speech, I would like to give you a roadmap. First, I will do some clarification. Second, re-rebuttals, and last clashes, including impact weighing. Okay, so everyone ready? Sure, my time starts now. To begin with a clarification, first, it's not juveniles' fault they commit crimes. As a concept, we're telling you the environment and the curriculum force them to. So that's why we should not lessen or increase the punishment. Current punishment is enough for them. Second, the reason these people are going around killing people and committing crimes is A, the lack of education, and B, their mental health caused by a background of family members. So these are exact reason why we need rehabilitations. Our point just misunderstood. And third, as our framework, we focus on two things. First, the right of the victim. Second, the right of juveniles. However, our opponents are only focused on the victim's right. Our opponents question how we secure the right of victim. We tell you first, victim satisfaction does not matter. Second, rehabilitation doesn't mean you have no punishment. There's also punishment in rehabilitation or juveniles courts. And third, even if cases happen, sometimes there's misjudgment happening. So moving on to the re-rebuttals, our opponents only rebuttal to our first contention is no link. However, Judge, we tell you 46.6% of juveniles delinquency did not know they had committed crimes. Even after the intervals, they still do not know. Not every country is like China. We have 9 years free education for everyone, and the majority of the country have no this supplies. So actually they don't know the punishment behind. That's the reason they committed violent crimes. So secondly, our opponents just misunderstood our second contention. Actually, we are telling you because of the background of your family, for example, a dysfunctional family or single parent family. So they have rational behavior. They have bad personality tendencies. So when they encounter problems, they will solve them in extreme ways, and they're more likely to resolve the consequences of crime. That's our logic. So we should not punish them and punish the juvenile severely. That's our logic at all. So moving on to our last contention, our opponent's only rebuttal for that is they can solve the problem, they can fix. However, should we tell you first, those problems like diseases have happened past decades. It is impossible for our opponents just saying, okay, they can solve the problem. It's not possible. Second, our opponent didn't provide any evidence or different cases that they can solve. So it is impossible, and it should not consider in later debate. So just cross that from the ballot, Judge. And so moving on to the clashes, we should went on the first clash about involuntary, subordinate education, subordinate impulsivity. Our opponent just kind of dropped its contention. The proportion of impulsive juvenile delinquency accounted for 65.3%. The impact here is so huge, Judge, please not ignore. And second, we should win on a clash of the connection between family members. Lastly, we should also win on a clash of the adults prison bad. Adults prison overcrewed. Teenagers who are sent to adult institutions are at a greater risk of abuse and physical assault. And they have 2 times more likely to be bitten by the staff, and also 50% more likely to be attracted by weapons than juveniles in juvenile institutions. So in conclusion, as a concept, we're telling you we'll focus on 2 things rather than our opponents only focus on victim rights. So we should definitely win today's debate because we provide you clear logic, clear link, and quantified impact. So from all the reasons, please vote for con. Thank you.
Please run pro prep. Thank you. I'm ready. So, is everyone ready? If so, then my time starts now. Now, before going to specific arguments, let's take a overview at the impacts and goals of both sides. Our opponent's entire case and thesis is built upon the fact that they benefit the juveniles who already committed violent crimes. Yet our side benefits the general public and every single innocent individual out there. Plus, they changed their framework from human rights and morality to rights of victims in the summary speech when their entire case has nothing to do with victims. Therefore, Judge, that's why you can already be very confident to sign a pro ballot right here. Now, Judge, our opponents tell you that vigilantism and victims are they tell you that vigilantism and victims being satisfied is not important at all. However, we tell you that there's a 70 to 90% increase in vigilantism when victims are not satisfied. Therefore, we tell you victim satisfaction is extremely important in order to prevent more death and crimes. Therefore, don't believe in our opponents on that point. Furthermore, they have no other responses to this entire contention, so vigilantism goes to us, and that's why you vote pro. Second of all, the reason for this is that they tell you how their evidence about 57% being satisfied. However, if you click into their evidence, it's actually about the adult criminal justice system. And the reason for 57% of the people being satisfied in the adult criminal system is because of retribution and punishments. That's where the satisfaction comes in. Therefore, this evidence supports the pro side, Judge, and we tell you that only in the adult justice system, criminals and victims are actually satisfied, and that's how we can actually prevent vigilantism. Now, the main goal and voting issue on our side is equality. We tell you that we hope to make a world a fair place for victims whose lives have been severely disrupted by violent crimes and also preventing future crimes. We tell you rehabilitation doesn't prevent crimes because crimes happens when criminals realize that they don't have any actual consequences for it. For example, detention till 21 years of age is basically like sitting there listening to lectures till they're 21. That doesn't actually have that big of an impact on each individual. Therefore, the consequences of committing violent crimes are minimized. So that's why, Judge, we tell you actually retribution and punishments are extremely needed to prevent vigilantism and further crimes. Second of all, our opponents are actually supporting crimes on their side and justifying it when they say we don't give them punishments. They're basically saying, okay, that's okay if you make a violent crime, right? However, I don't think any of us here thinks like that. Finally, on their side, their most important issue is about the specific and unique family issues and education of some individual juveniles. However, the thing is, Judge, because even if juveniles are important to the juvenile justice system, it doesn't provide them for example, a parent, right? If they have one parent, a single parent family, it doesn't give them a parent. Second of all, just because they're living in a single parent family doesn't mean you can go around killing people. That's not an excuse. Therefore, we urge a pro ballot. Thank you.
Okay, ready?
Sure. So if you're ready, just start. Yeah, start whenever you're ready.
Okay, so my time will start now. Regarding your point about how you can fix diseases, can you tell me a government's plan already trying to solve diseases?
I don't really know why you're stick with the disease issue. We tell you in the first place there are no improvement that need to be made because people are already received enough prescription and medication. Can we ask a question?
Actually, you haven't fully answered my question. You literally talked about how the government can fix and how we can fix this disease problem by tracing government steps. However, you failed to
let's make this clear. If there's so many confusion. Let's make this clear. The thing that we want to stress here is that no improvement needs to be made because it's already enough. People getting enough medication, enough prescription. It is not an issue that have to be solved. Can we ask a question?
Sure, we'll just. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you tell us that your framework is based on protecting the victim. Tell me any approach on your side that can actually protect the victim.
Okay, so first we tell you we're focused on both sides, first victim, second juveniles. And also I already said that in the summary speech that we always secure the victim rights. First victim satisfaction does not matter. Second rehabilitation
Let's stop here. You told us twice that satisfaction of the victim is not important. Why do you think so?
Because laws are not made to satisfy some people.
However, the issue is
Sorry, I really want to cut you off here because I believe there is some moral discretion from two sides. We believe the major reason law is to build on lives and to serve justice, which means we are protecting the people that are being harmed.
Exactly.
See, Judge, the thing that our opponents here is that they say that the satisfaction of the victim is not important while their framework is based on protecting the rights of the victim. That's a huge self-contradictory and also logical fallacy.
No.
You're saying right here is that the law isn't just built to satisfy one side of a person, right? What we're doing here is that we're trying to figure out the best plan
However,
for
the
the
issue is, like, we're not living in an ideal world where we can benefit every single person, right? We have to make some necessary sacrifices. For
Okay, so-
example, we tell you,
what-
like, you keep on.
that we sacrifice.
Can I make one point? You keep
Yeah,
on neglecting our evidence, suggesting that there's a 70 to 90% increase in vigilantism when victims are not satisfied. That is why we need victim satisfaction.
Okay, so can we move on?
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
respond.
so how can you secure the right of juveniles?
Secure the right of the juveniles, telling them what to do and teaching them, telling the consequences of committing crime is the best way to actually tell them.
So
No.
that,
Imagine the juveniles who commit violent crime. We believe the
you-
best way to either
just
educate them
remember
or to
the-
actually tell them is to giving them. If you ask, can I please finish? Yeah.
Yeah,
The thing is here is that we believe if someone have committed a crime, either juveniles or adult, the thing that we should give is retribution, telling them their actions are bad and they should not commit the crime anymore. We believe that is our moral obligation and the values that we stress here for the pro side.
So does that mean if somebody commits a violent crime, for example, killing a person, does that mean you can also kill that juvenile too?
Retribution doesn't equal to killing. I believe that's a huge misconception.
Okay, sure.
time up. Sorry. Thank you.
Can I run the rest of prep time? Thank you. Okay, so structure of speech is going to be first clarifications, then overview of debate. If that's okay with everybody, my time will start now. First, let's look at our opponent's responses. They rebutted our point about involuntariness by saying that there's no link to the topic whatsoever. When we tell you that the link is really clear. Due to bad education, these juveniles don't know the punishment enough to be deterred out of doing crime, and that's what's causing the crime in the first place. Moreover, they rebutted our point about family by saying that it doesn't matter because it's non-unique. When we tell you that 50% of crimes are caused by this family issue, we don't see why it doesn't matter. And moreover, we tell you that it's not their family that we are changing, right? It's a point of view and the moral standards that we are trying to change. Now, regarding the point about diseases, they talked about how we can solve this problem. When we tell you that this problem has been happening for the past decades already, it's impossible to just say, oh, we can change it, and then we can automatically change it. It's impossible to do that. Moreover, we tell you that in the whole debate, our opponents are just basing every one of their contentions on one assumption: we don't have punishment. However, we tell you that that's not the case, right? Because in juvenile court, we still have punishment. It's just that they're less severe. Now let's move on to, they gave you the evidence about 9 in 10 victims suffer, when we tell you that that's not directly directed to violent crimes. Now finally, our opponents are actually contradicting themselves by saying that, oh, they gave education, but we're the ones who are giving the rehabilitation, right? We are the ones who are educating them, while they're the ones who are punishing them with deterrence and retribution. We are the ones who are educating, when they're the ones who are punishing. Now let's look at an overview debate. We care about the 46% of juveniles who didn't know that they committed crimes, and the 65% of juveniles who committed crime due to impulse. We also care about the 50% of juveniles who committed crime due to single parent family, and the 17% of juveniles who committed crime due to dysfunctional families. And we care about the 50% of juveniles who are being abused in prisons. And people are 2 times more likely to be abused in prisons than they are in the juvenile court. Then finally, to the biggest impact, we tell you that the recidivism rates for in juvenile court is only 7%, while the recidivism rates in adult court is 85%. Do the math, we clearly have a bigger impact here. For all these reasons above, we urge for your strong con ballot. Thank you.
Okay, we would like to run the rest 40 seconds of our prep time.
Hamza?
Okay, sure. So is anyone not ready? Then my time starts. Now, okay, we believe in today's debate, we evaluate all by 2 standards. First of all, ensuring equality, and second of all, establishing security, because under such evaluations, we reduce crime, prevent future death rate, and actually ensure the rights of everyone. But now let's look at the major voting issue about protection of the victims. So our opponents in this debate repeated several times, they believe that satisfaction of the victims are not important, while their focus even includes the right of the victims. So therefore, we see a huge contradiction. But we tell that, in fact, without protecting the victims, several impacts will harm the entire society. First of all, inequality, which is based on deontology. While 9 out of 10 victims are suffering, juveniles only receive detention until the age of 21. So empirically, we need to increase the basic balance between victims and criminals. But second of all, preventing crime and death by preventing vigilantism. We show that, in fact, with greater victimization, vigilantism increased by 70% to 90%, which leads to the impact in which each year potential victims of crime kill between 1,400 to 3,200 criminals and injure a further 7,000 and 1,800. So therefore, we tell the impact is detrimental. People are suffering, dying, and committing more crime. So therefore, in this case, only by preventing vigilantism, by ensuring the rights, we can actually establish a better society. Now, looking at their sides, the voting in which they said family and abuse are extremely vague. Their impact never really restricted family issues for the juvenile who commit normal crimes, commit violent crimes specifically, and their abuse never really tell you specifically this issue is extremely severe in the criminal justice system. So when we're looking at this in a broad way, we tell that the similarity between the 2 voting issues is that they never really restrict and never really provide you with the uniqueness. When they're actually proposing an issue, what they have to do with the solvency, but we tell that both are lacking solvencies. Because for the first one, family, they never really tell you how by trying juvenile in the juvenile court can actually deal with a bad personality provided by any evidence. But second of all, when they're talking about abuse, they never really tell you how they can prevent future suffering or they can actually reduce this abuse in the system. So that's why, considering all the above reasons, we're so proud since we outweighed their evidence and we established the really moral values of today's debate. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the results right now, and it is a 4-1.
Are we supposed to disclose? This is the finals, right?
I think, yeah, we should disclose to them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So this is a 4-1 ballot, means 4 of the judges vote for pro side and 1 of the judges vote for con side. Okay, so I will just start with my feedback. So first of all, I don't think this is a really close round for me to judge, but I think that con side for contention your single parents argument did not make any sense to me. So I think you need to change with this because the family issues do not actually have any impacts on your own cases. And to be honest, I was expecting con side's final focus be more talking about the voting issues and give more word comparison in this part. But you did not give a really clear voting issues for me to judge. I think both sides' summary speech are great because I can see really clear impact comparison and impact weighing in it. But I would highly suggest that when you guys ask crossword questions in each crossword session, remember to give the unanswered questions or not solid responses questions back to the speakers instead of just let them go. And also, I was expecting con side your summary speech gives me more question points and how we should judge on this. But basically for me, like this is a pretty clear debate, but I think both teams did a really great job, and hope you guys good luck in the future debate rounds. And congratulations to both teams for breaking it into finals.
I can carry on from there. I also voted for the pro side. I feel like it was pretty much a slam dunk for me, just because, you know, for the con side, your entire case or a large amount of your case is dependent on this family issue, all of this, you know, we're trying to solve the root cause of the problem, trying to, you know, allow people to stay out of prisons once and for all, right? But there are 2 links that you need to establish for me to buy into that premise, first and for all. One is family issue the root cause of people going to prison committing crimes, right? Violent crimes nonetheless. And also the next link is how do you propose to solve this problem? So always, you know, as you're reading through your case, as you're preparing for your case, always circle back to resolution, saying how your side would help to alleviate the problem, right? So without the establishment of these 2 links, it's really hard for me to vote for your side, especially under the context of this debate, right? Finals. I would say, you know, both teams are good. Just for the con side, I also judge you for the last round semifinals, but that was also pretty much a slam dunk for your side, just because your side was able to kind of balance offense defense very well against the other team, right? But in this case, you know, it's a different circumstance. So yeah, improve upon that. And I think both teams, just middle school, y'all have a long way to go. Great prospects waiting.
Okay, I also voted for the pro side, and first of all, congratulations to the pro team. For the pro team, you made an argument that law enforcement doesn't have a quantifiable impact, but there exists quantifiable impact when it comes to law enforcement, which is more about the number of cases that were solved and those that they were not able to solve, and the objectivity or subjectivity in enforcing the law. So I believe you have to take a look at that again if you are going to proceed, if you'll be in this journey again. Okay, and for the con side, I had the opportunity to judge you, I think in the quarterfinals or so. So I was a little bit surprised with some of the arguments you were making. For instance, you dropped one of your strongest points in that debate, that was overcrowding during the finals. I don't know why. And also your claim about, fine, your assertion that the environment plays a role in the crimes that the juveniles commit, it is true. But the environment cannot wholly be blamed because people have been in such dysfunctional situations and they have still made it in life. So putting all the blame on the environment makes the juveniles free, makes them feel like if you are not being blamed for the crime you have committed, then you might have another chance to do it again because no one is going to blame you. So I believe you have to come again on that point in the next time. So thank you very much and congratulations to you all.
Okay, hello. Okay, I think I'm the last person who voted for the pro team. Indeed, I had only two swaying factors. I think from the delivery to laying of framework, contentions, everything was on point. But I think when it comes to the rebuttal stage, I actually made my point during the rebuttal stage. After the rebuttal of the second speakers, I think the second speaker of the pro team did a very good job. Because to me, she was able to answer all the questions that was put, all the questions that was asked. And I think in the final focus too, she made one very good, I think one very good remark about the retribution, making it very clear that retribution does not mean. So I think that particular point also swayed my decision. So I think the first speaker of the cone, please work a little bit on your crossfire. We'll just work a little bit on your crossfire. I think apart from that, my other judges have said, oh, good luck to all of you. It was a very, very, very good debate from both sides. So good luck.
All right. I'm myself underscore here. I do think this is a pretty close debate, and yes, this is generally, I'll say this is a pretty good debate considering this is the first tournament in the season. As to my RFD, the reason I voted for the con side, I'll first say that generally it's okay to directly assume rehabilitation for con side, but I think it's probably less so for the pro simply to say you are standing on retributive justice. I don't think the line between rehabilitation and retributive justice is what divides the pro side and the con side. Like, for the con side, it's typically much easier to understand because you're probably getting more lenient with the teenager. However, for the pro side, know that you can have a very retributive justice, but yet still you treat adults and the teenagers differently. Note that here, your entire line here is really with the age. It's really whether you want to make a difference with whether you are a legal adult or not. So I think for the pro side, if you want to convince me, I understand that retribution is probably the most often used argument, but I really don't want to just assume it. I don't want to just assume this argument just because everyone else is using this argument. I don't want to lower my bar for this. The reason is that, like, you can have very retributive justice itself. In principle, it's about justice, or it's about proportionality, you getting paid back what you deserve. Of course, this is true. This does not contradict that. This does not necessarily contradict the idea that, well, the minors are typically less mature, less emotionally mature, they're more impulsive in general, and yeah, they might deserve a second chance better than other adults. So I don't think it's really out of the line to say that when you are also having a retributive justice. I don't think it's really contradictory. For me, I don't think the concept really need this burden of proof in your argument, mainly because you never mention one thing about age here. So yeah, the thing you said in your case is that we should not like legally treat people differently based on their characteristics, but you never had the courage to say including age. You never have the courage to say sound weird to a lot of people. So you can only say we should not treat people differently based on different characteristics. But so long I'm not convinced age is characteristics. You never really convinced me in that regard. So yeah, this is the first thing. And the second thing is about the victim rights. On the idea of victim rights, I believe are pretty important. This is one pretty important aspect of the criminal justice system. I'm not exactly sure if victims really have the right to be guaranteed that they must watch the offender actually get caught and punished to the fullest extent. I don't think that the victims really have that right. And yes, our legal system, our criminal justice system is also in any country. It is not determined by the victim's willing, simply by the victim's will. So yeah, that part you also do need to assess here, like as to your car. I don't think your car really has anything to do with that. Your car did mention about vigilantism, did mention about victimization. I'm not exactly sure whether in your car it is actually talking about that vigilantism is closely related to like how this country treats minors differently. I don't think your car really give me a clear link that victims are going to be a lot more angry if our legal system does not treat the juvenile thing, whether the legal system treats juveniles as adults, and the actual vigilante justice. So yeah, so in all aspects, I simply see no link here. So that's essentially my biggest problem with the con side. I understand that with the pro. The pro side did make pretty good emotional appeal, and yes, or any other kind of a disadvantage setting, this does not necessarily play a role in whether you will make a clear point as to say why age should not matter. So especially this really is the status quo in most countries. I think you will need to challenge much harder than what you already did. For the pro side, essentially just one voting issue really. One voting issue is just the recidivism rate drop, which I think you have a really good final focus. I personally really like your final focus. I think you really picked up on most of the points. Though I'm personally not the biggest fan of your prison overpopulation or prison overcrowding argument. I'm personally not the biggest fan. My reason is that this is probably not so much of treating juveniles differently is probably not a solution to that. Like okay, our prison system in our country has some problem, and there is something that we need to do with it. And let's think of a solution. I'm not exactly sure whether the first thing that comes to your mind is just, oh, we need to let some of the prisoners go. I don't think this is really the solution that comes into mind in the first place. So in that case, I'm thinking like letting prisoners go itself can never be the solution to such a problem. Like, of course, solving prison overcrowding, this might be part of a bonus, but this should not be proposed as a solution to solve such a problem as prison overcrowding, if you could get my gist. So essentially, I'm personally not the biggest fan of this argument. Different people might have different takes, but essentially I vote for you for one reason, for recidivism drop, and I don't think pro meet the burden of proof. That's my argument.
So much, judges and opponents.
Thank you.
Great round, guys.
Okay.
See ya.
Yes, thank you, opponents. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.